right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining this. Just going to go ahead and share the slides here, and we'll start. Okay, I assume you all can see that.
That's great.
So yeah, I'm Alex Salazar, Principal of Salazar Architect. Really grateful for this opportunity to present. Las Adelitas is a really important project for my firm. And besides the AIA Oregon award, it was also a finalist for ULI award back in 2014 as well. So it's really important for a lot of reasons, which I'll get into as we go through this. The presentation is more of a story of how we became the architect and the community engagement process, and how that shaped my firm's design approach over time. Super want to have questions. We're holding about 15 minutes at the end, so just hold there, and happy to answer any questions you have. All right. So first, a little bit about my firm. I founded it in 2007 after about a decade of doing volunteer work with community-based organizations, and I started the firm out of my house. We were a very small office, mostly just me, doing mostly affordable housing renovations. And then around 2014, I moved to Portland with my wife, who was born and raised here on Mount Hood, and our kids were born soon after. So our extended family are still farming out in the Dalles, actually. But rural farming and kind of that has always been a draw for me to come to Oregon for many, many years. And as my firm grew, we ended up doing more and more rural projects as well. By 2023, when Las Adelitas was completed, we were around 24 staff. And around that same year, I started a branch in Sacramento. And today our projects are in California, Oregon, and Washington. And over our 19-year history now, which is hard to believe, around 85% or so of our clients have been community-based organizations, nonprofit developers, and public agencies. And we do a combination of things now. We do a lot of housing, we do community serving commercial space, and we do a lot of master planning. And lately we've been working on missing middle housing, a homeless navigation center, a resilience center, and other project types. And by we, I mean our 15 incredible staff who you see here, who approach design using community engagement methods, which is our specialty. We are a very diverse firm with staff with roots in the US, Ukraine, Mexico, Venezuela, Peru, Ecuador, and Korea. So our cultural and language skills have helped us build a lot of trust, particularly when we work with BIPOC communities and clients. And it's helped us design better buildings. So before I get going, think about this question. After a disaster, what are the 4 things that all people need to survive? Give you a couple moments. Not too long. And the answer is air, water, food, and shelter. And this is regardless of income, age, gender, race, immigration status, cultural identity, and so on. This is true not just for people, but it's also for animals and the environment generally. So our firm's view of affordable housing or of architecture in general is really organized around basic needs. And we do see housing as a human right. And that's our guiding vision. And it's how we have kind of grown and specialized over the years. And we also believe and know that the way to get there and to have that impact is through community engagement. This is what makes our firm different. And I'll come back to some of this in more detail at the end. In the meantime, the image here is of one of the many protests that were organized in Living Cully. Living Cully, the organization, was a collective of 4 nonprofits, including Hacienda CDC, Verde, NEA, and Habitat for Humanity. And so for about a decade before the project, They organized in the Cully neighborhood to take collective action and promote cultural expression. And they fought to ensure place-based development without displacement. A key part of that fight was to close down a building called the Sugar Shack, which was an infamous strip club known for illegal gambling and money laundering and human trafficking. So our project, Las Adelitas, is built on that site. So let's talk about the site and sort of the early days here. So the geographic location of the building and the site is right in the middle of the Cully neighborhood. The community was unincorporated, Multnomah County, up until 1985, when it was finally annexed into the city. And at the time we did the project, Las Adelitas was the largest redevelopment project and public investment in the Cully in decades, which speaks to how neglected this pocket of Portland was. Today, the Cully is one of Portland's most diverse neighborhoods, probably one of the most diverse neighborhoods in the state. Nearly 42% of the population is non-white, mostly Latino, African, and African American. 48 African immigrant African, to be specific, and 48% of the residents are considered rent burdened, so have difficulty paying their rent, and 15% live below the poverty line, which is higher than most of Portland. The site acquisition by Living Cully happened around 2015, which is the same year I opened my office or moved my office here to Portland. And initially we were engaged to lead a series of youth workshops and to design a temporary park and plaza. The bottom left, you see the existing building. The goal was to engage and help build leadership among the youth. And we held about 3 workshops. We did focus group sessions. We did a participatory design workshop, and we toured several Portland parks with the Parks Department, which the kids had a lot of fun in. So the kids had a blast. We had a good time, and the result is the plan that you see here. Another goal of this early effort was to buy time. Living Cully was trying to figure out how to repurpose the existing building. And the idea at that time was to create a food-focused workforce development center that would house also Living Cully's offices. But the adaptive reuse strategy proved to be very costly. The existing building was in really bad shape, and to rehab it was about the same cost as tearing it down and building something new. So it just wasn't feasible to save the building. Right at about the same time that we figured that out, Hacienda CDC hired a new executive director, Ernesto Fonseca, who by coincidence I had met years before in Arizona. And Hacienda had decided to buy the site from Living Cully and to pivot the project to focus on mixed-use affordable housing. Because of my works with the community and Hacienda's desire to support emerging Latino companies, they entrusted us to do the entire project. My firm at the time was 3 staff, and this project was much larger than our typical job. And then a few weeks after that came about, Ernesto reached back out to me, invited me to Hacienda's annual fundraiser, which itself was just 2 weeks away. So I had to pivot very quickly and come up with something to show. And this was the first rendering and attempt at it. It's pretty much complete eyewash, but there are some key concepts that we did end up holding on to, such as the central public plaza, which is on the right with food carts, the community hall that fronts it and supports it, the ground floor uses, which in this drawing are commercial spaces along Killingsworth. The building's name came later, but to just talk about it a little bit, the name Hacienda chose was very fitting. It's called Las Adelitas, which refers to feminist Mexican revolutionaries, part of that war long ago in Mexico, which figures very importantly in the community. So about 6 months later, we started our schematic design. And here at the top is the triangle site, that's the Las Adelitas site. The project financing uses about 20 different funding sources, from low-income housing tax credits, the Portland Housing Bureau, Oregon's Housing and Community Services, Network for Affordable Housing, and many other sources. That's pretty typical in affordable housing, to have just layers and layers and layers of financing that make the projects very complicated. And the site's location is really important to Hacienda because it's adjacent to their offices, which is the little pink building, kind of the bottom left corner of the site, opposite this, across Killingsworth at the corner there next to the site. And also the outlined here in the kind of a purple outline are all the properties that Haciendas owns, which are other affordable housing developments that they've built little by little over time, including at the bottom a project called I'm drawing a blank now, but Clara Vista. Sorry, I don't know how. That was their very first project. So we are also redesigning that. And so Las Adelitas is kind of the linchpin that leads the plaza through what is currently a parking lot that would get redeveloped, more pleasant streetscape, connecting over to the main plaza of this new building. So this is sort of the overall plan that's in play right now. So it's very important, these two buildings, in kind of redefining their overall master plan. Here's a closer view. The building's designed with many energy performance measures to handle future climate needs. It has a high performance envelope that will help reduce energy use and keep residents comfortable. All windows have low E glazing, tight seals to mitigate urban sounds and keep the cold air out. The roof has a very large solar array that puts energy back into the grid. The building uses energy efficient lighting and Energy Star appliances. And the construction used low carbon concrete mixes and low VOC materials that are in the building. In response to the extreme heat events that Portland's had, all apartments are equipped with high performance mini split AC systems, along with ceiling fans for air circulation. And then on the transportation side, residents have access to EV car share program, and vehicles are stationed in the parking garage and across the street. There's also a very large bike room on site for all tenants. And there's a new crosswalk that crosses Killingsworth and bus lines that serve that street. So the site plan encourages walking and the use of public transit. All in all, Las Adelitas has a predictive as-built energy model with a 38.8% performance over permitted code. And I am not a technical guy, so I'm reading that, which one of my staff wrote. The building also is Earth Advantage Platinum certified. So how did we get there? And so really this presentation is about the community process. And this is the timeline that kind of documents all the different things that happened over time. Schematic design through building permit took over 3 years, while it would normally take about 9 months. And that was just purely funding driven. But one of the nice things about that long timeline is that we had many opportunities to do community engagement. And of course, at the bottom here are all the great consulting firms that also supported the project. And we're really grateful to our whole team. So one of the first Hacienda workshops that we did were focus groups. And we had about 30 participants. And it was a mix of Hacienda residents and their other properties, along with leaders from the neighborhood. And because of the prior NE Cully work, the project was not controversial at all, despite its size and impact. And people worked really well together in these workshops. And during this workshop, we had translations in Spanish, kind of simultaneous, and we broke the room into 3 different tables. There was a table focused on the streetscape and how to handle the crosswalk and calm traffic. There was another focus group, or another table focused on the plaza design and its design character and amenities. And there was another table focused on the community hall and its design and its amenities. At the top image on the right, next to the whiteboard, is actually one of the original middle school kids who participated in the workshops. And by this time, he was in high school. And again, this story is about those workshops engaging the community and building up leadership in the community. So I really like this image because it kind of reflects that and shows that continuity. That initial focus group session then set us up to do a very large public event. And we opened up the process to the entire neighborhood. We advanced the design and then came back for the entire neighborhood. We had about 200 participants circulate through over about a 2-hour period. And the images here are from the building, the existing building that was going to get torn down. And we simply positioned people at different boards and then just engaged people in conversation and then took notes. It was also kind of a celebratory event as a way to kind of reconnect with the neighborhood, a very long community engagement process, and so to kind of keep that momentum going. So at this time, this is where we were at. This is basically end of schematic design or middle of schematic design. And we had worked through some of the key massing issues. One was the presence of high powered lines, which you see on the left, that we basically forced us to push back the massing above. But in order to hold on to as much parking as we could hold on to, we kept that first level as close to the street as possible. So that's a design move that kind of I'll come back to in a minute. We also started to play with accentuating the corner, playing with this offset idea. That's why it's there, because of the power lines, basically. And we started to integrate bright, culturally specific colors into the facade and started to think about the mural and the plaza. At this time, there were 2 buildings. You see the kind of bluish building at the far back. And that one didn't survive. You'll see that in some later images. At the podium is actually, at this stage, it was full commercial space. And having true commercial would have been really beneficial to the local community. Immigrant business owners need spaces, and Hacienda has the programs to engage those businesses. But in affordable housing, if you include the commercial at the ground floor, or if you go to the 5 stories that this was, you trigger bully wages or labor wage rates that make building more costly. So we were going for higher density at this stage in order to offset those labor costs. Another issue we hit was in the zoning overlay on the site, which required certain features to be included, such as the cornice. We did our best to work with that, but it was not our first choice. Coincidentally, the area was up for new zoning decisions at the time we were doing this. And so we helped Hacienda push to remove the overlay on the site, which was eventually approved. Lastly, the other issue we hit was the executive director wasn't that enthralled about this design, which is kind of funny to say, but it was a really good thing that he did. And so to his credit, he pushed us to redesign once the zoning changes happened. And once they had made the decision that they needed a smaller building without the commercial to make it feasible. So that brings us to really the design that's been built. So the redesign, specifically in rethinking it, we looked to Latin American modernist precedent buildings, both in form and color, and also at vernacular housing as precedents. Half my family's from Ecuador. I had recently visited Mexico just before this. So all of this was fresh in my mind. And, these precedents, from these precedents, we abstracted some design principles. One was clean geometric forms, no eaves, bold contrasting colors, flourishes of detail around major openings. As we started to design, we also drew inspiration from the uniqueness of the triangle site, which I felt was important because it is kind of a unique form. So we brought that into the building as we started doing design work. Fast forward a few months, and this was the transformation. We held on to some of those basic massing moves, dropped out a floor, so we're now a 4-story building, and we removed the commercial from the project. And notice that the second building in the background was removed. We brought down the overall cost to make this financially feasible for affordable housing. And then we also introduced some overlapping forms. We removed the cornice, all of these things. At the base is durable materials. Here it was rendered as concrete. We ended up with a kind of a panelized system. but this is all due to the heavy foot traffic at this part of town. And then the mural's there pretty much in the same space that it still is, which is where the entry to the community hall is, and it supports or fronts the public plaza, which supports food trucks. And here we were integrating, Latino colors in particular, and had a very extremely bright pink, which I really liked, but some people thought it was too much, and they were probably right. So during this kind of redesign, there were several events. One was called Shake the Shack, which ended up being a really important event. After years of protests to shut down the building and years of getting it to a viable plan, this event kind of took on a momentous feeling. The photo on the left is of some of the main women involved in the development, who were involved in the advocacy work and the architecture work and the development work, taking sledgehammers to the building. Even the executive director got involved, the image at the bottom right, commandeering machinery to tear down one of the walls. So it was very, very fun. So it's cathartic, and literally tearing down a building that did so much harm in the community for so many years. One of the workshops during this time, we focused principally on interior design. So we're really in design development at this stage. We're getting close to it. And we had a variety of tables. Kids even had their own table, which is a great way to go. Typically, you have staff or an adult to do some daycare while the adults do the engagement. But here we flipped that model on its head and just used it as another opportunity to get feedback. So they had their own table going. Out of this workshop, we learned that Latino families in particular preferred open kitchens to accommodate large family gatherings, and they generally liked to use muted pastel colors at the interiors. It's kind of where the kind of dot voting went. While the immigrant African table generally preferred enclosed kitchens and darker and more neutral colors. So that was a very interesting revelation that we kind of uncovered. Once we realized this, we decided to do a more specific workshop with the immigrant African community, with a translator. And we discussed kitchens and interior design options more deeply. The issue we hit at this time was the apartment widths were already set, because this is like end of schematic, beginning of DD. And adding an additional wall or redesigning the kitchen to be accommodated an additional wall really meant widening the units. And in order to enclose a kitchen. And so at this stage of the design, it just wasn't feasible, both in cost and having the wider plan. So our team eventually opted to use an open L-shaped kitchen, which allows the large family gatherings, but provided the possibility of being closed off by individual tenants with screens or curtains in the future. This was not, admittedly, a great compromise. So after this project, on our subsequent work, we've made sure very early, or even before schematic design, to get into these types of questions with community groups, and that's been successful in our more recent work. So let's now look at the final built work. So this is the view from Killingsworth again, and Cully, the intersection. The power lines got removed, which we didn't know about until much later. The project took so long, but eventually they did come down, but the building was already massed and designed. So we continued with that. The community hall entry is still there at the same spot next to the plaza. It's just pushed back from the street, so it's not visible in this image. But pushing it back allowed for better gathering at the street when there are events. And in reality, it was a requirement of the zoning code, which we decided we didn't want to fight. So every 200 feet, there needs to be a break in the building in Portland. And so we aligned it with that requirement. Here's the view of the hall. We have this wonderful mural. This is called Together We Bloom, which is by artist Michelle Angela Ortiz, with assistance from a local artist, Oliver Casillas. And it basically features depictions of some of the Cully activists who were involved in the struggle and celebrates community stories. And here's the view from the plaza. The plaza incorporates lighting on the poles. It has space for food carts to roll in during events and space set up for a band to set up. And the poles also allow for sunshades to be attached in the summer. And on the right, off of this picture to the right, is an additional plaza space that's slated to become a playground in the future when Hacienda eventually develops the corner site, hopefully at some day. Coming around the back of the building along Highway 30 in Lombard, this is the view. We pushed the building back from the street as much as we could. That was reasonable. It's heavily planted and functions also as a landscape swale. The extra distance helps a little bit with sound also, which is nice. This is a very busy highway. And behind the screens is the parking at the first floor at the podium. And above it's metal siding with kind of staccato grooves that we also tried to play with along the base at the blue screens. Here's a closer view. This is from along Cully, where the white massing is actually pushed back. There's probably a 10-foot difference there on the image on the right between first and second floor. The screens are a custom pattern that one of our staff developed, referencing Mexican patterns, particularly papel picado, which are punched or perforated paper that you typically see in Latino businesses, for example. And up above, we use that same pattern as sunscreens to accent the building corners, particularly at Cully and Killingsworth. Heading into the interiors now, here's the plan. Starting at the right in purple is the community hall, which is about a 5,000 square foot space. It has a community kitchen and restrooms that opens out to the public plaza. In green is an early learning space that serves the broader community and community hall, as well as residents. In yellow is the lobby. Next to that is the mailroom in blue with services and offices around it. And in pink is the residence community room. Collectively, these spaces at the ground level give it a commercial feel along the main frontage along Killingsworth. And there's also an inner courtyard that you can see there. And wrapping that is the parking along Cully and Highway 30. In developing this plan, we utilized the angle of the triangle site and tried to reflect it in how we thought about the interiors, which you'll see in a minute. And my general feeling was that, it was an important aspect of the site that kind of made it unique. So it was something to kind of play on and think about in the more vertical building components and designs that we were doing. Here is the main hall, sort of the main space for the building. This serves the community as well as residents. And it's not a true commercial space, but Hacienda allows the other folks from their buildings to use it, or the community in general to use it. One of the things we did as my firm grew in size, as Las Adelitas progressed, was to hire staff who represented the community. One of the staff, Christian Tellez, is both an interior designer and a mural artist from Mexico City. And so we gave him lots of leeway. The angled motif here you see on the wall repeats in the building. You'll see that in other areas. And reflected in that design is also reflected in the scoring of this floor. It's a little hard to see, which is exposed concrete that's also stained. And we aligned the wood baffles with that patterning to some degree to help with acoustics. And there's also a movable wall you can kind of see in the background there that can fold out to subdivide the room. So it's a flexible multi-use space. A little bit closer view. This back area doubles as a stage. So there's a roll down screen from above that's hidden and a projector as well. And then Christian did not do this mural, but it was commissioned by Hacienda. I don't know who the artist on this one is. But behind that wall is the large community kitchen. that's designed to commercial standards. And they do weekly food banks here and other activities. And while it's not a true commercial space, it is a great place for large family gatherings and events. Originally on the left, used to be a full-blown commercial kitchen for the food cart pods to have a place to prep food and for training and education classes. But again, that program had to be removed due to the commercial wage rates that were impacting the project. This is the early learning program space next to the community hall. It has multiple functions. One is a daycare space during events, so if folks need to have kids separated in their own space. It also serves for after-school programs, and it also serves as a prep area for food banks or other activities when they're doing things for the tenants. Our design staff had a lot of fun playing with the acoustic panels you see here and kind of matching it up to the flooring to create a lively space for the kids to play. The doors, there's kind of 3 different doors here. One opens directly to the resident courtyard, which has play equipment. The center door opens directly into the lobby. And on the left, just off the screen, here is a door to the street. And behind the camera is a warming kitchen and some restrooms. So now coming back into the main lobby and main entry to the building, we wanted the canopy to stand out against the rest of the building. So the contrasting color and the perforated metal, it's backlit from the inside. So at night it has a very interesting kind of shadow pattern going on. And because it's a triangle site, it's a little hard to see here, but the walls and the canopy are angled to pick up on that angle. And the first thing you see when you enter the lobby is the outside. This is a very active lobby. It's also a very compressed space. And so having that direct view to the outside and nature, was kind of what we wanted to achieve and kind of make it as welcoming as possible. And it's kind of part of our biophilic and trauma-informed design approach. And here we are in the courtyard itself, looking back at the lobby. The courtyard has all kinds of kind of 3 different zones for play equipment for smaller kids, and the apartments enter directly from the courtyard. They're not entered off a corridor at this level. And behind the camera is the access to the parking garage. For me, this space really turned out really well. I was very happy how it turned out. Just really nice scale and has lots of natural light. It's south-oriented, and the blue color up above kind of picks up on just the sky and water and just creates a really calming and kind of nice, pleasant space to be in. Going back into the lobby, there's a lot going on here, and I'm really proud on how staff pulled it together. We wanted to create a casual space with kind of friendly, culturally specific colors and patterns. And it helped create a place, it's a place really for people to come down, greet a visitor, a place to relax or rest or converse. And much of this functions like an entry courtyard you might find in a Spanish villa. We allowed, the natural wood and concrete to be what they are, and it has the views to nature in the street and courtyard. You can kind of notice the triangle being brought into the flooring and how that cuts through the floor, and also at the lighting above. The stairway we had to fight really hard to hold on to. There's always value engineering pressures on these projects, but functionally it encourages walking up to the 2nd floor, and at the top there's a fire door between it and the corridor. And the hallway to the right, it gives you access to the residential common areas for residents only. This is the mailroom. It has, functions as circulation to the offices, kind of kept things as open and visible for safety as possible. And it gets a great amount of natural light, and the warmth of the wood is really nice. This is the community room, which is just for the residents. It was a really tricky space to design because there's not really 2 right angles. It's right at the street corner. and the grades also change on both streets. So made for some challenges, and particularly because we ended up having a direct access to the street, sort of off to the camera to the left, and had to work in a ramp. So that made it a little complex. The restrooms are out in the common lobby, and then at the back you see the kitchen and kind of dining and seating area. On the upper floors, it's a double-loaded corridor building, pretty straightforward, and the corridor daylights at one end to the main plaza, or the main residential courtyard. A key feature here, what we kind of the first time we've tried this, was to open up those corners of the building where it's a kind of a dead end and dark area. Those are the 4 different zones there highlighted in pink, if you can see that. So this was really interesting. The idea was to kind of give residents space to socialize outside the units at each level. Zooming in on this a little bit, this is this corner at Killingsworth and Cully, and you can see the little bench outside in this case, there's the elevators. The corner apartment here was really complex, but very fun to work out. To get to work, we placed the living room at the street corner to help increase eyes on the street. It has great views. And then right next to that is a 2-bedroom, a unit type that I call a nested unit. This is where you tuck a bedroom back, and it only has a 5-foot exterior wall. This allows for natural daylight and ventilation, but it also shrinks the width of the apartment by about 5 feet than normal. So on a long building, it helps increase density and financial feasibility. It's a trick that I learned years ago, but this is the first time we've been able to get it built. So that extra nook is a place for furniture or a crib or a desk, etc. Residents figure out how to use it. And bedrooms don't need a lot of natural light, so tucking it back is really fine. Probably about 25% of the units, the stacks of units in this building, are this method, which is how we were able to get the density a little bit higher on the site. And here finally is a view of the corridor. On the left is an example of the nooks we created in the kind of leftover zones. And then the color combinations you see here intentionally combine both neutral, dark colors along with bright pastel colors, which is what we learned from the community engagement work that we did around the interiors. And each corridor has a different bright pastel color as a way to add to wayfinding as you're kind of circulating this very large donut-shaped plan. And on the right is the resident court, a view out to it from above, and it's a really exciting place. Very happy with it. And you can kind of see the 3, I think you can see all 3 or maybe 2 of those equipment zones for kids for play space. And so in conclusion, I have a few things to highlight. Okay, first is the story of Las Adelitas is also a story about our firm's design methods. In 2017, when Hacienda took over, Las Adelitas was our first large project. We were entrusted to do the entire building solo rather than having to associate with a large firm. So this helped us grow exponentially over time. 2017, we were about 5 staff. And by the time the project ended in 2023, at the peak of COVID, we were about 24. So a very short time. And we made a lot of strides in how we handled design. Starting in 2020, we organized our firm into 3 design labs. We call them design labs. We have the community design lab, which focuses on workshops in order to learn from and integrate community feedback into the work. Our well-being design lab focuses more on the social sciences, trauma-informed design, universal design, biophilic design, and how this impacts people's health and well-being. And our sustainable design lab focuses on energy performance, energy modeling, how to craft the building shell in a way that significantly reduces the carbon footprint of the work that we're doing. And all of our staff participate in the labs. And this method kind of grew out of the work that we did at Las Adelitas. Second, the story of Las Adelitas is really a story about culture. Um, the project coincided with the state's focus on prioritizing COBID certified firms. And COBID, if you're not familiar with it, is the certification system for women-owned, veteran-owned, minority-owned, and emerging small businesses. And last I checked, our firm was only one of 6 Latino certified architecture practices in the state of Oregon. So we are about 1/2 of 1% of over 1,000 architecture practices. I think there's about 1,000 in the state. So, even though Latinos represent about 15% of the population. So this means that as a profession, we're really actually dramatically underserving certain communities, especially when you get out to rural Oregon. So Las Adelitas opened a door for us, which I'm very proud that we walked through it. It gave us a lucky break, gave us access to many other amazing opportunities that followed, helped us expand out of Portland and into suburban and rural parts of the state. And, but in the political climate we're in, there is a risk of COVID being changed and dismantled in some ways. And so I worry that that door is now being closed off to other BIPOC-owned firms that might be coming behind us. So, and lastly, the story of Las Adelitas is about resilience. And the architecture work, took about 7.5 years to complete. And the community organizing before that really took about a decade. So we're talking about 17 years. And that long time frame is what allowed for many meetings and workshops to really help the neighborhood and help build resilience in the neighborhood. And over time, the people in the Cully demonstrated really an inspiring show of community power. They turned a blighted location into a community asset. So while it is definitely an honor to have received an AIA award, it was really a process. It was really the process of community engagement that was most important, because I do believe that community engagement is what helps us build resilience. Thank you very much. Really pleasure to be here and to be able to present. And I welcome any questions that you have.
Thank you, Alex. So everyone, please feel free to turn your cameras on, and you can put questions in the chat box, or just feel free to turn your cameras on. It's a fairly small group. Make sure to unmute yourself too if you're going to ask questions.
Don't be shy.
It looks like.
Yeah.
This is Jim Satzinger, architect. I like the way the building is economical in one way, but yet has a playfulness. The way you have the colors and you have some of the massing that kinks around, that makes it fun. I think that's really successful.
Thank you.
So that's not a question.
I can respond to it though a little bit. Okay. I think about it as that long time frame, kind of the project, kind of you saw the massing change so many times because we just kept having more and more community input, and kind of creates a little bit more informality to it. Like it just, I think it helped not make it monolithic over time. What questions do folks have? Please ask.
Alex, Melody put something in the chat.
Oh.
It's not a question, similar to Jim. She said she goes by the building often. It's beautiful, very cool to learn more about the process.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Hey, Alex, this is Kirk Plowski. Thank you. It's a terrific project. And congratulations on your on the 7-year journey. Very interested in your commenting about with housing comes the importance of food, and you've talked about that as a way of not just sustaining people, but also bringing people together in different ways. So really interested in how kind of the whole idea of the kitchen design and this unfortunately this idea that you weren't able to pursue at or how Sandoz was not able to pursue with you on this sort of food culinary training and teaching and business opportunity. Really, just your thoughts about that now that the project's been completed and you've gone through all of this. What you really learned about the role of food, I guess, in bringing people together.
Yeah, it's a really important area. I think, as you're indicating in your question, I think it comes up, a lot of the affordable housing developers have a social mission. Not all of them focus on food. A few really do, whether they're for profit or nonprofit. Um, but it is all the reasons you just said. I don't mean to repeat what you said, but what I have learned is that I didn't think about food as a arena that we were playing in as a firm, but we get all these projects where food is part of it. Like, I would say more common, it's like a community garden. And then we had one client connect a community garden to, not this project, different project, to education classes, right? And so then Las Adelitas happened with the food carts and training for the food cart folks and that kind of space. And so I realized over time, I would say, a few years ago now, that, oh, there is this arena of food, and actually it is super important because it is a basic need also. And so it fits well within our vision as a firm to go after projects that have food as a focus, even though we're not, we've done enough commercial kitchens now. I think we can, do the pre-planning for them, but we're not super specialized to do that in-house. I think very few firms are. So yeah, I think we've done a food bank too. So it's led to other projects, really important ones. I don't know if I answered your question there, but I do, I do feel it's an
Thank you.
important area.
No, that's terrific. I think what I heard from you in your presentation, which was maybe a little subtle, was the importance of the role of food in families and community, and the importance of using that
Yeah.
as an organizing principle in the architecture. Thanks.
Yes,
Appreciate it,
absolutely.
Ken.
Yeah. We have time for a few more questions if they are. Yeah. We do. I see Jennifer Rogers. We have a number. Las Adelitas set us up. This was the first of the big, large ones we did. We have several others that are completed on our website, both in Washington and down in California, or from our branch office. And currently, we have a couple in development right now that are in construction, and a few more heading into construction. So yeah, there is more if you look at our website, and there's a bunch online, and hopefully someday I'll get a chance to come back here and present again on something. So thanks for asking. Any additional questions? Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all for having me here. Really, really appreciate you turning out. I'll pass it back to Colleen.
I was just going to thank everyone for joining us tonight, and thank you, Alex. It's a beautiful project. Wonderful presentation. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Have a good night, everyone. And I did put Kathy's email in the chat box. If everyone wants to grab it, please email her if you want to receive credit for the presentation.
Doesn't that usually happen automatically when we sign up, the list, and then the confirmation that we attended?
So what she told me is that there's a QR code, which I'm happy to share. And it essentially, I think that it captures your AIA. Like, I think you have to put your AIA number in, and then she can give you credit. I think we used to do it automatically, but I don't know that I mean, you can ask her in an email. I don't know that she does that anymore. Do you want me to share the QR code, you guys?
Sure.
Yes, please.
But we take a picture of it?
Yeah, just hold your camera up to it. It's going to take me just a second to pull it up. Okay, so you should all have it on your screen. And you just hold your camera up to it, and I think it directs you to the type form that you fill out. Did everyone get it?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right, you guys. And yeah, Jem, please feel free to email her for clarification.
Thanks. Nice to see you.
Yeah, you too. All right. Good night, everyone.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody. Bye-bye.